Yeah. Reporter in Rhode Island.
7 o'clock.
I can hide behind this.
Wave to your adoring fans, Sean.
Oh, great.
You want to start, or how do you want to handle it?
I mean, I guess I could start.
Well, hold on, we got to do a normal
Yeah, right.
go over here. We have a special meeting for a workshop on budget for fiscal year 2025. And we're going to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, technically, I need to get a motion for executive session just to start things out here related to labor negotiations and contracts. Can I get a motion
I'll
for
make
that?
a motion. A second.
Trustee Mendoza and trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We will go back on to pause, et cetera, here until we are out. We'll go back to my office for the executive session. Okay, we are back. No action being taken with respect to the executive session, and we are back in session here at 7:28 p.m. Okay, as I've said many times, this is more for you guys than anything else. So lead the way. If you have questions specifically that I can answer, I'm happy to. If you have concerns, we've been asking for them for a week, but I mean, let's hear what they are. And let's go at this so we can reach some conclusions.
There's a couple of questions I got, but as Sonny, Mary or Bernadette, do you have issues you want to go first?
Mine are very minor, so I'd rather get into the more deeper stuff right now, I think. Or do you think it's better?
Well, one of them, we could talk about that committee on the arts.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we talk about that?
Yeah, so I don't think Arts Committee, when they sent in their request, they were not very clear about the actual funding they will need. There's a sketch, everyday sketching class it's called, and then a make and take. And the way their document read, it sounded like it was fully being covered by Saratoga Arts. That was not their intention. They kind of briefly mentioned it real quick at a meeting. I was like, oh, that doesn't sound right. So they are actually requesting for funds to kind of make it. The artists were asking for a total of $5,000 to do the class. But I texted the chairs and they broke down a cost. I go, well, what could you do with like a modest fee for the classes and one that you think would make sense for people to still be enticed to take it and not be deterred by the cost. So they planned for 20 per student. So between the grant and between like the fees for class, we would just, they're asking 2,600 to just round that out for the programs, and those would be special. I think, you saw Octavia's artwork. They did say that they had, as a committee, discussed foregoing the second set of the banners that they have been talking about over the past year or so. They're working on a set that they should be getting for this year, for last cycle. So I just was hoping we could be accommodating and figure out how to get that 2,600 just so that they can actually make this project, these two classes happen. And
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great. It's educational. I guess my thoughts are we have an excess because it doesn't appear we're going to have a birdhouse program. So, I mean, why wouldn't we shift those funds? I mean, the birdhouse was an arts exhibit, and as are the banners. I would assume we'd allocate those funds to the Arts Committee to use as they see fit. I mean, that certainly would be more than enough, because wasn't it about 9,000 for the birdhouse?
Yeah, so my concern was even with the Saratoga Arts Grant, putting in $5,000 for 2 classes, that leaves us with $5,000 for 2 classes, about 50 people. That's about $100 a person, which I don't think our village can afford spending $100 in one event or, a person. So even if we cut it in half, it's $50 a person. So we just think about that and whether that's the best, most equitable use of funds. It's,
I said to that, to Emily offhand that like, y'all should maybe consider a different approach next year. Again, I think to me, grant, I thought it was being paid by a grant, whatever, it's, not it's money we're
yeah.
receiving. It wasn't clear that they actually needed the additional funds from the village.
I guess I become, just given all the needs we have, I would be comfortable saying that the village would give $1,000 each, $2,000 to each event to add to the 2,500. And how much would that require? So maybe the artists can be flexible on how much they actually make on these things. But
So you're saying 2,000 total rather than
Yeah.
2,600?
it's $1,000 for say 20 people. I guess it's 25 people a class. So I don't know, it's just expensive, it's for a relative small number of people, it's a nice thing. But the library could use more money, and lots of places could use more money. If everyone's comfortable with 2,600, I mean, I love the arts. It's just, let's looking at dollar signs. We probably don't need, for example, maybe we don't need 2 banners that are now allocated to the task force, which I think should go to the Committee on
No,
Arts anyway, but
Committee on Arts has said they are flexible on it. We are specifically talking about Committee on Arts right now, so
No,
they're willing to adjust.
right.
their
But what I'm
process.
saying is there's 2 banners right now allocated for the task force. I think it's 2.
It's one. And I've just looked at it.
And how much is it?
2,500.
Right.
Yep.
So 2,500 for one banner. So
Certainly a learning lesson, I think, for that committee.
we need to put something in because Saratoga Arts put something in. So, we have to,
Yeah, that's.
it was done in the done in the context of, I don't know if Saratoga Arts was promised a match, but, I think it was at least.
No,
I
it's said the event will occur, that's all.
Yeah, it's not
Right.
matched. Somebody could do a program for 2,500. But these 2 particular artists are saying, no, it actually costs more. The part of it was to pay for materials. So I'm just putting it out there. I think lesson learned for them, to be very clear. I encourage them to next year maybe consider other types of projects that are more broadly accessible to people, because I had similar thoughts. I'm like, well, we discussed it kind of offhand. I don't know what the breakdown is per person, but it's only so many people that can attend this class
Right.
because of logistics. In the same breath, though, the library does offer programs and classes that are limited. I even talked to Carla, I go, are we even allowed to do this? Have so much village funds pay for like a limited type of class. And she said that it's common, it happens in other municipalities. There's no reason why we couldn't do it. I don't know if y'all saw my email. I think there's some flexibility. What I was suggesting for the 3 different things that I'm proposing, just little boosts here and there, that you could potentially say, because the property tax interest and penalties line, the actual is like way more than we've ever actually, budgeted for. So gotta find it in the PDF. So anyway, that's one of the things that, encourage us to think about. Then
So what do we want to do for, so it's a decrease already. It's not like we're asking for more money here. They're going from like 17.5 to 12 or 17.8 to 12.8 because they got that Saratoga Arts money. Just a question of what other things. So for example, like, the historical commission has asked for $500. So,
No, they actually upped that to 1,500.
okay.
We just got that yesterday.
All right, so they should probably get something to publicize and educate people. So anyway, I could see,
What's up?
why was it so late, I guess is my question.
No idea.
but they had asked for something earlier, maybe it was less.
Right, but it was last week. Yeah.
I thought there was a time before that. I remember them, it was a couple of weeks, several weeks ago, or a month ago, where they were asking, how do we ask for money? And I think they sent in an email.
Where,
Is that yesterday?
Yesterday and
and
last
see
week.
that,
Historic district,
Yep.
this is their budget.
From
request.
yesterday?
Yeah.
I thought there was something or.
And there was one that's the revised one,
The one that they handed over in the meeting last week.
right? Was 325 and then this one was 42.
Okay.
let me see it.
Well, I'm just looking ahead of where else we might need
So-
funds. Maybe we don't give them 15, but we give them something.
So like our projected is quite high for real property tax. And we're budgeting for only 20,000. So that's why I suggested that line could be increased by a little bit. The total for the three things I'm asking for is $3,900.
Did we end up with any more from re-levy on that line? Do you remember when we got that check in?
Did we end up with any?
More tax interest and penalty?
Not that I know of. I don't.
It's what we got Milton's and the counties. I'm gonna think.
Milton, I didn't hear you.
We got Milton's and the counties
We
re-levies.
have, yes.
I gotta assume some of that had to be, the only way we get re-levied is if there was penalty attached to it, unless
I have to check with Bob.
Yeah.
He-
he broke it down.
Yeah,
So we maybe even have more than the 64,965 showing up in that line.
All right, so we've saved 5,000, even if we spend 2,600, we have saved some money in the Committee on Arts line. I'm trying to find here. Sorry.
And they're like,
Um,
they're willing to do
so-
the fee, the class. fee.
Right. So I'd be interested in funding something for this history commission. Maybe $1,000 to do their education and publicity, or something. Or maybe
What's
have-
it, what's
yeah.
the $1,000 for? I didn't get to see that. 500 is for
I'm just
signage, I
guessing
guess,
what it's for. I think it's,
to
which seems
delineate the
premature right now.
bounds. Delineate the bounds of the village historic district, replacing
oh, that's right.
two existing damaged signs, installation of above signage.
Their potential.
Yes, how much for that?
1,000 for the historic district signs and 500 for the installation of them.
Okay.
I'm sorry, how many signs was that?
2?
2. Oh, no, it says 5. 5 historic district signs.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. But to delineate the bounds of the village historic district replaces 2 existing damaged signs.
The only thing is that might be replaced next year at this point, because we don't know what the resolution is gonna be, yeah,
What the what?
rezoning that we're working on.
Do you think that'll impact the historic?
It could,
Could expand, yeah, I don't know, but
Yeah, I don't know how we unmake a historic district, zoning or not.
Yeah, isn't that regulated in some way?
I don't think
by state?
anybody's suggesting that be undone, but the boundaries, they're looking at boundaries of everything.
I mean, I guess theoretically, you're saying they could expand.
Potentially.
Well, we got the store people right behind us.
Can I clarify a couple things, or is it out of them?
Well, no, right now, I think tonight, at least, we talk about stuff, and if we need to, I don't know, it's up to Frank, but no other committees here.
Well, let's get to crux issues for now, and then we'll see what we got
Okay.
left after, because
Yeah.
right now we're talking 2,000, 1,000 stuff. I mean,
Right.
I'm not moved horrendously in any direction on that stuff. That's
Mhm.
all minor. One thing that's got to be fixed, I will say, is Scott Strait. We had at the wrong ladder level. We got to, we're currently getting him paid up correctly based on his experience level. And then I have to make sure I'm budgeting correctly for him. So there'll be an up in salary and FICA share that I'll have to fix as well, a couple grand probably on that situation.
All
So
right, so you said $3,900, Bernadette,
Oh,
how's
other
that,
things, just
or what,
data.
where does that come from?
Well, so the other items, I'm sorry, I just literally jumped out of that email. Okay, other thing was garden club. I figured add 300 for their, I think that was for Iron Spring specifically,
yeah, they,
right?
for some reason they dropped their request down to 700 through Caitlin, but we were looking historically. It's been
Last year was
1,000, I think,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I
Um,
asked her about that today, and she'd take more money, but she was comfortable with 702, so.
So I suggested adding the 300 to make
Mm.
them up to 1,000. And then farmer's market, I think that I would encourage us to put 1,000 in for marketing to help them. I
How,
got
how is
some
that different than the marketing we're doing for BSBPA?
Well,
What,
it's
spending on them?
a different request. You'll see it in the packet, it's just a conversation of like, what would think about, like, some of the things that you guys utilize or need for the farmer's market to make it successful. There was,
Mhm.
I forget what year it was, but they were told that there would be work in Whistle Park, and they had to move to the museum there, and it was not helpful. And I think to maybe correct that, it would be wise to.
Just a tad.
I'm sorry,
No,
I'm just leaning back to.
There you go. Sorry. Everybody be seen with his name talking.
It would be helpful to give them some, just one-time sort of marketing assistance. This is a market that I've spoken to seniors, they walk to, they're not cars, it's easier than going to Hannaford. And for the low income folks, I see your wife every once in a while shopping, not to say that
Yeah,
people,
we
because
can.
that was the weird way that I
There's more
but
than that.
it's not just for me and Ben's wife, that like to buy our vegetables. It actually really serves a really important purpose, and I think, they are working really hard to try to revamp it, and I think it's something we can consider,
What else?
Dinner at Julia's house.
Yeah, she cooks fresh, she makes good cookies. So total, those three things that I'm suggesting between Committee on Arts, Garden Club, Farmers Market, is 3,900. And I suggest that that we increase the property tax interest and penalties line, A-10.
90, yeah.
Yeah, 1090, thank you. Because it's, Frank's tentative, like under, keeps it very conservative considering what the actual and projected have been for those lines, or for that line. So I think there's wiggle room
Well,
there.
I think if we take 2,500 away from COA, that'll basically pay for the, right now they have the 5,000, they have half of what you're asking. I mean, you're asking for 2,600, and 2,600 is in their budget now, I think. It's
No.
actually
No,
5,000.
what's actually happening there is that I put the $10,000 of grants in a rollover, because I assume we're gonna get paid that money this fiscal year. If we don't, there's gonna be $10,000 grant money that's gonna be available either now or later. And I put their full 17,000 and change at the time, I think it was 17,800, was it?
Right.
So. One moment, please.
Their request form didn't articulate it well, what their
Yeah.
actual need was, and. I only realized it in, what was it, like 2 meetings ago? That you and I got to attend. And then I had to ask, because I was like, that doesn't make sense. And I just, did I find it?
Where
Oh,
are
here.
they?
Um,
For the arts. So they have 17,800 here, but they only need 12,800. Is my understanding, because they got 5,000.
Right, I've only got them down as technically 7,800 because it's 17,800 minus the 10,000 for grants.
I thought they got 5,000 grants.
Now, for all those things, they got it for digital math, they got it for sounds, they got it for the 2 Octavia sessions, but the 2 Octavia sessions didn't adjust downward with the grant receipt. That's the problem. So realistically, they needed 22,800 and now 12,800 net of grant is what it came down to. She's saying essentially to go back to 17,800 and add back in the 2,600. Was that what you suggested? So that line would look like 20,400 with knowledge that they have 10,000 in grants elsewhere in here that are offsetting that.
That was confusing to me.
Thank you. I'm glad I could do it.
Because I asked them today, where are we with budget? And the short story was they asked for 17,800 and they got 5,000 from Saratoga Arts, so they need 12,800.
Do they realize they have the other grants?
who did you talk to?
I don't know who emailed me, one of the 3 leaders. But anyway,
Yeah, but,
I'm all right.
Imagine our excitement when we get the grants and we're like, oh, they only need 7,800 in total. But obviously we show the 17,800, we show the 10,000 reduction. And then we were like, wait, it's still 2,500 and the revision they gave us 2 days later for those 2 categories. And it's like, oh, what happened? That's where we ended up here.
Yeah, let me see. All right, this is from Ashley Bush.
Mhm.
Here's a copy of finalized items. We said we originally requested 17,800. Our committee was awarded 2,500s for sounds, 2,500 for digital art map, bringing what we are requesting down to 12,800.
Do they know
Batavia
the-
requested 5,000 for each art event and 2,500 for each event per message. So she's going through us to try to get the remaining maps.
That's it.
Yeah.
So the class can stay free.
The problem is that they had representatives asking for 2,500 per event for Octavia, and then they revised that to 5,000 per event for Octavia.
Per event? No.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, that's
With before the SA grant.
correct.
Right. So
Now,
now it's 2,500.
originally it looked like the grant took care of the entirety of it.
Oh,
Now it's
that's-
not.
All right, I
Yeah.
never thought it was gonna be the whole thing, but here's, anyway, this is not the biggest deal in the world to do these things, but she gave me this little spreadsheet. I guess I could forward it to you.
But it is the bottom line, basically, they were looking for 22,800 minus the 10,000 in grants.
Well, in this thing, they're saying 12,800.
Right, that's 22,800 minus the 10,000 in grants.
Right, okay. So without looking at it, maybe. All right, well, I guess my question is, you're saying you need additional money for COA, whereas I was thinking we actually could take money away from COA.
No. Not if you want those two,
I mean, like I said, worst case, they said they're willing to adjust and not do the second banner order, but this way you don't have to do that. The way I'm suggesting it means we don't have to impact them that way.
All right. I'm fine with that. I would like, if we could, and maybe in the same way, put 1,000 to the history district, historical commission. At least to get the signs, and then there could be more conversation. I mean, I give them credit because they're here, so anybody's here. Seems like that's an advantage for us in terms of our information ability. And everyone was invited, so so I think it's not as if they're cheating by being here, they're actually, helping us.
I'm asking, I look clock watching a little bit here, but
Yeah,
what are
no,
the
we gotta
larger
keep
issues
going.
on $2,000?
Right, so, all right, yeah, no, so, but is that, who's keeping notes on what we're talking about?
I kind of am. Because it's in front of, so,
The recording is.
Yeah.
yeah, the recording will be better than
I think
mine.
there might be closed captioning available too.
All right,
Said it at
so
the beginning, I didn't even know it was on.
I'm fine with what you're saying, and I would advocate for $1,000 for the historic district commission. At least to get the signs, and then we can talk about where to put them or whether we hold on to them.
Why didn't anybody tell me that I misspelled the word capital for 2 years straight? Yeah, permanent improvement capital outlay turned into capsule outlay. I went through this with a fine tooth comb, damn it.
I think I just got blinded by all the numbers.
Yeah, fix that.
Not a good.
We know what you meant.
Yeah. fat
The,
look up.
all right, there, another piece that we're not clear on, or that it looks like it's not in the budget, is 9,000 for the library. So that it looks like there's 9,000 from this year, but not anything for next year in the budget currently.
Right, they didn't ask for any, they asked just for the money that they were owed from this year, so far.
But don't we want to support, I mean,
We
I thought.
have an
in your
open-ended
summary,
offer.
Didn't you say in the summary we were gonna support them?
I
again?
said that we have an open-ended offer. Currently, they're going after grants and grants and grants. They're waiting for the sales grant. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on that. Is there any specific thing that they've asked the village board for?
Are they gonna need matching for those grants?
No.
I mean, there are our buildings, right? They're village buildings.
Yeah. I mean, they're going through a major renovation. I mean, we use their facility twice a month. I don't see why we wouldn't be
I'm
offering
just
some money
saying,
to them.
well, the offer is an open offer. They have not actually knocked on the door.
But
They come to us, if I can here, they come to us when they've had some emergency study stuff that they have to do that wasn't budgeted, and we've always provided on an ongoing basis, whether they were checking to see what was in the roof area, ceiling area rather. We gave a good dose of money toward that. We gave the 9,000 originally, and I said, look, whatever you need, let me know. We'll work on getting you what you need ultimately.
So, well, Mary, have they mentioned anything? They could use some money?
No, they, at the last meeting, I think they said that, what you had said that there was the running offer. They do need something and they will keep that in mind. If something comes up where they don't have the money, they will come to the village.
How this budget thing works.
yeah, I mean,
Well,
right.
it's a capital expenditure if it comes down to the building itself, and that's traditionally where you're gonna do fund balance approach and something like that. But
I mean,
So what is?
but the budget is a planning doc. I mean, I'm shocked they don't want any funds from the village.
what they want actually is right now a holding location for the grant money as they're getting it, and so alongside the water infrastructure system-wide reserve account that will hopefully be up for vote on Monday. We'll also have one for the library grants fund for building improvements and renovation.
So I hope all right, thank you. I hope the library understands that this is their opportunity to ask for money for this year. That this is the way the budget works is it has to be balanced. We have to plan things, and to do things ad hoc is not the ideal or appropriate way to do it if you can anticipate expenses. Now, what they're saying by telling us they have no expenses is they expect to have no expenses, and we should expect to not have to do anything for them this year. That's what they're saying. So if that's the expectation, that's what the budget is.
I have a document from Andrea that asks for $7,000 of unusual stuff.
Mhm.
We put down $7,000 for, it's not unusual, it's probably.
That's
for
the
large-
EQ.
Yeah. It probably belongs to CE, honestly, but I put it in there just to signify that was her request for that stuff.
All right, I'm not comfortable with the method of, you're not telling us what we need now, so later just come back to us. Because God knows what sewer pipe's gonna break or whatever, we just need to be planful about how.
You would take it out of fund balance anyway though, Ben, so
An
realistically,
emergency repair, yeah.
I mean, so realistically. Even if they asked us for it, it would come from the same place, so they, that in 6 months say, hey, we have an emergency after all need, we would take it from the
Well,
same
there's
place.
an emergency,
Okay.
yes, I mean.
Well,
That's different.
emergency as in, hey, we had a shortfall and we're progressing with work, we need 100,000. Where would we get it from? Fund balance, that'd be the only logical place to get it from anyway.
What, I guess, what scenarios are you thinking about?
I have no idea. I'm just somewhat shocked that they're in the middle of a capital campaign and aren't asking for some funds from the village.
I thought you
They're
wrote
not
a big
asking
check,
for
and
money
that's
from
why.
everywhere.
Yeah. Especially because a lot of grants do have match required, but I guess they don't.
Apparently these don't, but.
They're just doing that good of a job with all the grant
Yeah,
funding.
really, I am actually kind of jealous. I'm gonna borrow them for grant writing later.
Okay,
Okay, so library, what else was your?
we don't have to worry about library.
I just, maybe you can clarify this. I know we show in your summary, transaction of $360,000 for the Woods Hollow sale.
Mhm.
That actual contract amount is $435,000.
It's 75,000 is the negotiated amount for contract termination. It's not gonna be our money.
Yeah,
And
but
we're nothing
should
more than a
we
pass through if we even touch it.
document it in the budget that it came in and then it went out?
Not really, because it's not in earnest our money.
No, it doesn't. Isn't there budget protocols on that? I mean, it comes, if we're
We
gonna-
are obligated to pay that $75,000 to Lumac. Milton could just as easily hand a check over to Lumac, as long, all we care about is termination of contract with Lumac. And as long as that's what does it, that's what does it. In fact, I think we're gonna have the contract for Woods Hollow up for Monday. Carla says she's trying to get that over to us, so that's it's specific in there.
I just thought.
And then, I mean,
I
I'm
hear
not
what
an
you're saying,
accountant, but
but
usually an accountant.
yeah, if money's coming
your
in,
money
us,
and then you take it
doesn't
out.
have to be tracked in and out.
I mean, it could be, but if it's just gonna be handed over to
Lumac,
the Lumac, then I don't know. Doesn't need to be,
no, not for a budget purpose, no.
not for the budget purpose, no, I agree.
Was you okay with it?
Do you need a cough drop? Do you need a cough drop?
Oh,
No,
okay. Okay, go ahead, keep going. Anything else?
I know with the hiring of the 2 new police staff. It looks like it appears that there's gonna be about a $60,000 increase in benefits due to full-time staff. Is the reduction in overtime in the future budget gonna offset that cost?
Here. I'm seeing the script kind of come to fruition here, so this might be helpful. And that's that and a lot more is in there. Maybe that'll save some time for later. Give this one, so I guess.
Thank you.
I can print out her stuff, but not your stuff.
I take it out Mary's discretionary in a situation like this, plus I can always bring a pack of paper, that. But if you look on page 4. Last paragraph,
Your summary?
yeah, actually, it goes on page 5 is, fine. That you guys have voted on approval to full-time officers after Officer Hayek left their department. You know that Officer Ives will also be leaving soon from retirement, meaning that by the end of the calendar year, we'll be back at 4 full-time officers again. And clearly, you guys knew this, so I'm not sure why this is a question. That Straight and Ackley.
No,
are
the question
not
is it
full-time officers.
working out is the question.
So
Is it going to work out?
So here's the other part of it. We're working with our police union to curb overtime and are reviewing options for how to handle overtime shifts for our next contract negotiations scheduled to begin next year. In other words, we're trying to rectify the issues now and into the future while ensuring public safety and officer safety. So we actually had a meeting today just generally talking about strategies to reduce overtime, because I had a concern too. And they're executing some strategies even before we get to the next contract phase. We'll see what they're able to do, but we're also not going to be doing constantly like we did last summer, the traffic third shift enforcement scenario. Don't forget too, though, that we should have a parking code back to get revenue back in that should exceed what the PEO is paid. So there's a give and take also in this situation.
You said a full timer is leaving?
Yeah, Officer Ives is our most tenured officer, so he's the highest one on the scale. He's retiring and we moved to Florida, I think.
And replaced by another full timer?
No, he's already been replaced by that full timer.
Oh, that's right.
Because we were losing two full timers in proximity, and Ed Brame is not that far behind, I don't think. We want to make sure we had a little consistency with who our full timers are, pick up the.
So the total
Experience.
salary should go down because.
Right, there's only 1,040 hours I have budgeted for Ives for 6 months into next year, because by all rights, he may leave earlier, might leave a little bit later, but more or less, that's the goal. I had a good conversation with him about, what his goals are here. He's trying to find a property in Florida. And let me be blunt with you, nobody wants to be a policeman longer than they have to be in this day and age.
No,
That's a sad reality.
The only reason I'm asking is because when we originally voted on it, the discussion was by putting full-time staff on, we might be able to, we were gonna be able to offset it with a reduction in
Yeah,
overtime.
that's still the goal.
Okay.
So we're working on that. One of the things is that we probably could have handled it a little bit more nimbly in the contract and how the shifts were offered, and something that Dave is keen to for next time. But we're also talking about doing something to handle it smarter in the meantime over the next year. So.
Question about water. So you said that we're gonna have an 8% water increase. And anything over 3.25% is gonna go into water reserve. Don't we need to reflect that now? Like put about 44,000 into a water reserve?
Well, you guys have a good script tonight. Let's go to page. Let's see. Okay. Page 3 started at the very end. Let's see. First, there's an assertion that our estimated income from selling water has been decreasing since 2021. No, because we've actually finally increased rates after a 5-year pause from doing so. And that our second period is going to start we're in that second period right now, actually. They'll be billed the next fiscal year. Water rates will be increasing 8% according to the mayor. That'll add 75,000 revenue in fiscal 2025 was what was stated in the video. And I say the mayor stated that rates were going to rise 3.25%. See my memo on that. $75,000 increase is revenue expectations is because the projection of the second half of fiscal year 24 water payments suggests the 5% increase helped jump revenues a little more than expected in water. So that's why it's at 993 instead of what we had originally projected. Okay, so the baseline is 993 on that line, not 940 or whatever it was. I don't have it in front of me, but it was something lower than 993. The only thing reflected currently in the budget is the 3.25% increase, the inflation increase, we'll call that, okay? And not 8%, which was only recently endorsed by the Revenue Advisory Committee. A change to the tentative budget before approval of the final budget will likely add the additional water revenue for an 8% increase. And a matching entry would show the move of that money. So the additional money from the 4.75% will be shown as going to the system-wide water infrastructure reserve account.
So that's a change you're planning to make before it's finalized.
Correct. So that, like I said, that was just last week. I think it was endorsed by they didn't do a vote, but they were trying to vote on something else, but they all said that 8% was the way to go for this year at this point. So go ahead with budget wise, the 8%. So that's why.
All right. So now it's 3.25 and we'll change to 8 and you'll put
the
4.75 in a reserve.
Yep. The only thing I got to do is to figure out the computation to figure out, because we have an ongoing 5-year strategy, and how do I track exactly what that number is, what percent I'm pushing over. And so we're going to kind of figure that out over the next week, what the correct methodology should be for that, to make sure we're not robbing the reserve account in that respect, but also make sure we're budgeting the right amount for water.
Remind me, when's the deadline to finalize this?
You got 2 meetings still left, so the public
May.
hearing meeting and then one more.
So April 20th or something?
Yeah, you're 2.5 weeks.
Yep, okay.
And you can always have a special meeting, you can either go up to May
April
1st,
22nd.
but I don't think there's any need to do that. It doesn't sound like we're that far apart.
Okay.
Now, I know we have a lot of things that we're taking loans out and paying for this year. I didn't see debt service for some of these. Is that just gonna be taken out of fund balance?
So name your specific one.
The water tower?
Tower.
So water tower, we haven't finalized yet the way that's gonna be paid, because it could be done in installments. We haven't finalized the bond. We don't know if the bond payments will be due right away or not. The likelihood is that we're going to bond for more than John Street Tower to have money for the other 2 towers, but that means we would have money to pay out of loan for the first payment if it came due in fiscal year 25. So more or less, it's a capital project that's kind of off into a separate part of the ledger. And what we do have is the excess water revenue to cover at least part of it. One of the things that we know is that by raising rates, water rates over the next 5 years, assuming we don't even get Milltown, eventually, if we had to borrow from the fund balance, we would actually make it whole by the 3rd or 4th year of increases. So there's a null effect on the actual budget itself for the capital project for water towers going forward.
But don't we need to show?
You can't because you don't know what the numbers are. You know generally what the cost is, but you don't know if you're paying that cost now, in the future, how the bonding works with it or anything else. So it's covered. We have our payment, and if we bond $1.25 million for $1,012,000 project, it's covered. We have at least a payment or 2 there. And then
Covered by just what? The general fund balance?
it's covered by the excess loan at that point.
Oh, okay.
So
By the loan itself.
yeah, so we're covered there and we're fine. Yeah, police building, it's all discussed in here too. I look, I knew a script was present and I said, hey, let's have the answers ready to go.
No, this
So
is good. This is for us to understand and also for the
you could
public.
have given us
So-
this about a week ago and I would have given you the same
Well, and the
answer.
public
So-
wouldn't have been here, and that's the main reason for having these. And why historically they've been done since I started as a trustee, because this is a public forum to hash it out, is where it's appropriate to do.
Sure, but you could have put in an email, because just so we have
Oh,
the stuff
this is much
before this
better.
meeting. No, I mean, so we could discuss it in here, but also know those questions ahead of time, I guess is the question.
With respect to USDA equipment, we probably will not get the last piece of USDA equipment in time for first payment to be due in 2025 fiscal year, because if the first payment is due 6 months after closing of loan, and it's an interest-only payment for that first payment. Look at that recently, because we were talking to Chris Hunsinger over USDA.
Well, but I was basically wondering if some of these are gonna go into the next budget.
It'll be fiscal year 26 probably for that start. With respect to mortgaging 70 Thompson Street, we did estimate what the payments would look like. It's not on our debt schedule because it's not officially debt yet, but we did estimate what the first payments would look like to USDA, again, with an interest-only approach for the first payment. And then we kind of could figure through an amortization table what the rest of it would look like and put in correctly. So that's why the debt schedule and the principal and the interest on the budget itself don't match, because there's an increase built into that for that reason. So that's in there.
It is in there.
It's in there.
Okay. I
It-
guess, go ahead.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I kind of a question I was for the end here. I know we look like a 9% increase in expenditures. Revenues are 7%. Resulting in a 2% gap. Are we just covering that with fund balance for the time being, or?
Page 1. Mayor's proposing a 5.3% tax increase. The budget shows a 9% increase in expenditures and a 7% increase in revenues. There's a 2% gap between the money we make and the money we spend, is what Liz said in our video. Frank's response is, it is clearly stated in the tentative budget transmittal memorandum that over $520,000 of the expenditures are carryover expenditures, with money being rolled over from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25 in the general fund. That means that only $62,874.37 is excess spending, which is equivalent to about a 1% increase in budgeted expenditures between fiscal year 24 and 25. You also seem to forget that over $300,000 was allocated to come out of the fund balance in fiscal year 24 for special projects. None of that $300,000 was allocated out of the fund balance. The allocation out of fund balance for fiscal year 25 is based on rolled over money, meaning we did a good job in fiscal year 24 avoiding the unnecessary use of pre-existing fund balance money. In other words, we didn't have to reach deep into the fund balance to pay for those projects. Ultimately, we can just take what was left over from this year's budget looks like and use it to roll it over and pay for those things this year. And so it's not really an increase in expenditures in reality that you're seeing. You got to look at a 2-year scenario here in 24 and 25 to understand the totality of what's going on. We've never done a large rollover like this, but I don't think it's fair to taxpayers to double charge them for the same project 1 year to the next. And that's what we're essentially making sure we're not doing. We've done that before. I could sense from reading some of the past budgets, we shouldn't be doing that. That's not fair.
There's some things in the roller price don't belong there, like the treehouse, $9,000, you know, it's not.
The birdhouse?
Yeah, the birdhouse. You know, that's like that's a one-time operational thing. Not so much like it's capital things that get rolled over.
I disagree completely with you on that. Well, if you know you've got a replacement program that's coming up that's delayed, then the only sense that would make is that if you're still going to do something, put the money to where it's going to go to time-wise. I don't get why.
Well, I guess we have no information on first of all, I'm not sure we need a replacement program, but secondly, we have no idea what
Have you seen
that
how
is.
bad everybody's been on the news?
We don't, what's the replacement program? Do you have any details on that? And
It's going to be a display program. It's going to utilize the wood from Curtis in the same way. And beyond that, we're going to try to do a big reveal. So I would prefer not to go there right now, but we've got
Well-
the events task force, something that's going to be a great reveal ultimately to the community. And it's going to be something that kind of gives back in a lot of ways.
Well, without knowing what
yeah.
it is, we have no idea what the estimate and the quantities and what it's actually gonna cost.
I mean-
Is it gonna cost 9,000?
But not only that,
Make it cost
but we should know, this should not be a surprise to at least the board, like there should be an email that says $9,000 is being spent on X, Y, Z, and it should be something the board approves. Not just, here you go, here's the project, surprise, which is sort of what happened before. It just seems like we should be in the loop ahead of time when it comes to spending and not surprised. And if it doesn't have to be necessarily in a public forum that we hear it, if it's something exciting that you want to excite the people about it, but we shouldn't be surprised by how we're spending village money.
I think we'll probably know by the last meeting in April what's going on. I think there'll be an announcement of that. And so you probably have the full data and information before final approval.
We should have it before final approval.
That would be great.
We need it
Short
before
meeting,
final approval.
well, anyway, but that's the whole thing. Keep going, yeah.
All right, how about the repair for sewer and Wiswall? Shouldn't that be in this year's budget, this coming year's budget?
The repair for sewer and whiz wall is something that we are collectively putting as a whiz wall capital project along with the other stuff.
Oh, so you're lumping it in with the
Yes.
total park.
Because it was, even though the worst case from what Jeff has for us, Jeff, COA wasn't 360, I don't believe. And so the
Well, no,
cost.
it was around 360, it was 300, over 300, but
Right, but
But
scaling
Yeah.
back that a little bit, yeah. But anyway, the assumption is that the 360 from Woods Hollow money would be for whiz
sewer
wall,
also.
and that's part and parcel, I think, of whiz wall.
so
Don't we
we're
need to-
rolling in the sewer as the overall Wiswall Park improvement plan.
Correct.
but do we need to show that in the budget?
How? I don't have
As
a
an
cost even.
expense.
I just asked, Labella just
thought we
started
did.
pursuing it yesterday, actually. We talked to Ruben. No, we don't have that one.
I thought we had like three.
We're
different-
getting a new approach right now for replacing the stone only. So it's a replacement to the clay and figure out how many manholes we're gonna put. It could be somewhere between 1 and 3,
Are you replacing the clay or not?
not replacing the clay. Because also not redirecting it might allow us to keep the tree.
Okay, yeah.
Which, because what was happening was by moving it, the root system was getting involved and it would have it gone, but absolutely. So this may actually be a way to save the tree.
All right, so this is scenario 4. So.
Well,
are we-
scenarios 1 through 3 weren't exactly what I would call cheap in.
Well,
any way, shape,
they were also replacement of the clay as well.
Yeah.
Everything underneath.
Are we still on target to do this in the fall?
That's what we're aiming for, but again, we don't know the numbers, but we know we have $360,000 that is literally banked away in line in 0962 budgetary provisions for other uses. What will happen on this line, for instance, when I put the water move, it will also be under 0962, 009 for now, but I will have a second version of that line distinguishing it until we have the creation of that category. So I'm going to show them anytime we're doing that, each instance of, this is for the reserve account for water type thing, or I'll put in parentheses or something along those lines. So you understand there'll be a line added to transfers.
Now, when LaBella is working on this, they're just doing the sewer design, and then,
Get it out.
estimate for RFP.
Yep.
Do we have anything allocated for them? And I don't, sure, would probably be in this budget year. They're going to, once Studio A does its landscaping plan, I'm assuming they're not doing the other elements like electrical plan, lighting plan. all that
Jeff's going to
stuff.
explain that to us on Monday. So let's
Actually,
Jeff, Studio A, Jeff.
His budget was somewhere around 360,000. It was over 300,000, and it did not include detailed architectural work.
We're not,
So,
let me be clear about something, Ben. As far as I'm concerned, we're not spending $350,000. That was.
I don't know how you spent 350,000.
well, we also should apply for
Landscaping.
grants.
Yeah.
So we don't know. We don't have to.
And grants too, sure, but I mean, I look at that and I'm like, probably my worst day, I was assuming 150, 175. Okay, maybe if I'm stretching and really want to do a great job with pavers throughout certain areas, 250 at the most. Okay, but in a world that we're suggesting 360. Okay, we know DPW can take care of some of that stuff.
Right.
Down there. It's just 360 will cover Wiswall Park. It better
Yeah.
cover Wiswall Park
I mean,
because that's
As
crazy.
far as the plannings, maybe we could work out something with the garden club and
Yeah.
do a state.
And he's gonna
Yeah.
state it in his, I have a preview of his transmittal. That he wanted us to look at, make sure everything is accurate from our perspective on it, and that's one of the things he'll talk about, is that just right there. So, DPW doing some work, garden club doing some of the planning, stuff like that, where you can save money
Can
on.
you share that with us?
He's gonna hand it out Monday. I'm letting him finalize, because I'm not sure Caitlin gave him any instructions on that one. She just asked me if I had any changes. Sleep.
That's water.
Sleep.
Outside.
Sleep.
Wow.
Seven.
There's a lot of time for that help.
Sewer, it doesn't look like there's an increase in the sewer budget.
There is, we fell short of what we thought this year, so it actually is in there. Yeah, it's based off of the projected again, so I think what you guys were using was the number that was projected, or adopted rather. The projection is what I'm using to use now, the 5% increase, because that's a real number now, essentially, or at least a better guesstimate at the number with partial information for the year. So that's why it is showing the 5% is there. Now, when we're doing 8%, I would do 8% for sewer also in this situation. And so that extra 3%, I will suggest goes to contingencies in sewer for now. And we can figure out as we go along, if we want to do a similar reserve account for sewer for some purpose later on, but at least it's in the account and isn't automatically assigned to something else that it would likely just drop into fund balance at the end of the year if we don't use that contingency.
So you're gonna do that
The
for the final
3%,
budget?
the excess 3% basically.
Right, so you're gonna do that for the, like you
Yes,
did with water?
yes.
That'll be a
That,
change.
that's also in the response here, so I detailed that as well in case you need to kind of understand that better.
All right. No, I haven't read this budget.
You'll have to grade light reading for,
Yeah, I did notice the current budget here, EML, fire department. It appears they're 100% or 100,000 over budget. Is that, what, was there?
What are you
some-
saying on over budget? Give me the example of why you think that.
Well, I think in the estimated actual budget. It was more than the adopted budget.
Yeah, email fires, emails over 100,000 over budget.
They total 126,000 in the tentative budget. EML. And the only building improvement they're getting, or asking for is the, parking lot resurfaced.
Yeah, I guess the other question I had was. Did you say there was an additional 90 for the apron? Above the,
The bids that came in were in the 75 range, 135 and 137, I think it was. Don't quote me on the exact numbers, but it was in the 130s.
is it because you're replacing a curb now?
It's thicker, it's prevailing wage. There's some challenges. I mean, Guy finally came to his senses that we can't do anything to ADA that thing because it's the existing slope based on the state's highway. Okay,
Yeah.
you know, we're like, lower your highway, go ahead, we'll happily go ADA on this. So
Yeah, hey, you know, it's a pre-existing condition,
it is,
so.
in an
We'll
impossibility.
have to call it a non-standard feature.
Yeah.
So,
So, and ultimately he did, but there's a thickness issue, with the concrete and some of the mobilization for, the highway, state highway, interference, situation. So
did you
Black.
send along the bid documents?
I don't even have the full bid documents on me. So, this was, under Labella's, complete watch. So
Okay, if you
here's,
could have them forward it, so.
here's, let me give you
You
the
get a better
status.
understanding of it.
Here, I can send you, actually, I have the bid documents showing thickness, et cetera, if you need to see that, because everyone just sent that to me, because JAG did not bid. JAG was the one that was gonna do it for 54,000 last year. I've asked Union to send the package back to JAG because the $75,000 bid revoked their bid. They didn't think the thickness was what it was, and so they misbid, and so they revoked their bid. So the only bids we're left with now are 135 and 137, whatever it was in the 130s.
What, do you know offhand what the thickness is, or
3
3,
inches,
3 inches? 3 inches thick concrete?
I believe, let me,
Well, it's usually typically 4, and then fortified aprons are 6 or 8.
let's see if I got this. Sent it to be sure. Let's make that a second. Okay, there it goes. Demolition, grading.
I mean, if you just wanna,
Yeah, I
Send
just,
that to
I
me,
want to
I
at least
can-
get you that number,
Yeah.
because it should be pretty readily apparent. The thickness, right?
The fire department is way over budgets. I'm trying to find it.
They are to the penny with, plus building improvements. Which is us, so that's not their budget technically.
no,
So there's fire chief's EQ.
Mhm. Which is where we put the excess that would go into truck reserve if it not used for something else. That's why I know it's the penny, because I basically dumped into that line, whatever was excess at that point. That will go into a reserve account. Seeing everything but what I want to see. I'm gonna forward it to you right now.
yeah,
Okay.
it's-
So there's a projected, there's a, for fire chief's EQ, 110,000, there's a request of 140,750, and then budget in the budget, 168,000.
Give me one more
And-
time. I'm sorry, I had to switch.
Well,
back.
and then you have a note, overages amount under a budget to apply a reserve account after AFR. I'm not sure what that means.
Means
So-
that we will see what they had as unused from their fire contracts based on the AFR final numbers. Our accountants We'll fix any mistakes and add it all up basically and say, okay, here's what we spent on fire for those categories. We add them all together. We net out building improvements. That's on us. And we say, oh, they have $175,000 left over. We're going to move that. We have to do it with last year still, actually. We have to move that now to the fire truck reserve account that we've set up.
But why is it projected? Why are fire chief's equipment projected to go to 110,000 this year, is budgeted 68,000? And then next year it's gonna be 168,000.
Because the excess is being put into there.
All the excess is going in there.
Yes, we don't know if they're gonna need to use it or not, because for instance, they had the $40-something thousand
But that's-
debacle with
that's
the
not very
ladder
expensive.
trucks this year.
This-
So that 40,000 presumably will not be going to their fire truck reserve account this year because they've used that. So they budget what they need to budget and they say, okay, we think we're gonna have about 80,000, 100,000 left. I can tell you what it is if I get to his pages here, I will. So put that in fire chief's equipment as a holder, basically. And then if we don't use it, put it into the reserve account for fire trucks. They have to show their spending of the town's money to the penny, basically, because of the audit that's required by the towns.
So that big increase is all covered.
Everything
By
is
revenue.
covered, yeah. They show in their numbers, the contract amounts and everything else on what Mike Bayshore gives us.
Mhm.
He gives you to the penny. Now, he did go a little bit over, but I made the fixes so that we were at the contract amount ultimately, plus the building improvements from us. So,
Same with fire chief CE. That's going up from 60,000 projected to 105,000.
fire chief CE, which you have a full sheet of, is laid out. Apparatus service contract for both stations, for instance, 25,000. Firefighter physicals, fitness test, mandatory 10,000. New York State volunteer.
What is the difference from last year? Why is it going up by 40,000?
Because perhaps they didn't purchase everything ultimately this last year. So again, though, we don't get that money, Ben. If that money's unused, it goes into their reserve account by rule of the contracts that we have with Ballston Mill. So if they save money, they get the benefit of that money ultimately. The only thing that we are responsible for is building improvements ultimately for that.
So the 3.3 million, they're gonna be responsible for that too, for the fire truck. right?
Yeah, that's what we're attempting to work out right now with the contracts.
All right, when I see huge increases, when there's money needed for
It's-
fire truck, I
You should
guess.
be applauding them
they-
for being fiscally responsible ultimately, because that'll help ensure that they can afford $3.3 million in fire trucks over the next 10 years.
So these may be just placeholders is why.
To a degree, but they are budgeting it all in a
Right.
sensible manner, but they
Mhm.
are being frugal where they can be because they
Mhm.
know anything they save goes into the fire truck reserve account.
Right.
So applause to them for that.
Mhm.
Thank you for explaining that.
You guys think I just eat bonbons in that back office all day?
I think you're on Facebook all day.
Eating bonbons. I type quick,
I
okay?
did see some chocolate back there.
And cheese balls.
Those were Girl
Oh, the
Scout cookies.
pasta.
No,
Oh,
the
yeah.
cheese balls are
Girl
probably
Scout
lost.
time. All right, events, we're just talking about a couple thousand here, but, do we need, I guess I'm wondering why we need more money for Family Fun Day. When they didn't need all of it last time, I know
Yeah,
there's
they
a lot of
didn't spend their
donations.
budget last year.
Well, they did that because they got donations and in kinds throughout.
Well, isn't that the expectation? They're gonna continue to have those donations.
And also you guys bought like $2,000 worth of tents, so you still got those.
Mhm.
So that'll save you $2,000.
Well, they were asking for 20 and that's actually what I did, the $2,000 in tents. I took them down.
Yeah, why
So,
Well, for one day, 20 is.
Thank you, Frank.
I think there's no need to go anywhere over what we did last year.
Well, you know. Again, I was shocked with the library. I was like, well, the library's got a capital improvement project, you know. I would assume they'd need all the money they could get, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that's a long-term benefit, versus, you know, more of a one-day event, you know, having more lavish one-day event, but.
Okay, what else you
But
got?
apparently the library is flush with cash.
All right. Do we need to put money in for a lawyer for zoning?
No, why would we have to at this point?
For the end well, next year, won't it be within this coming fiscal year that we'd have to get a lawyer to do zoning?
They're going to give us the projected zoning code. Fisher, that's part of what they do. So we'll check it, obviously, with our attorney, but it's not like tens of
So we
thousands
don't
of
need another
dollars.
a lawyer. to
You're
have to
paying,
do it.
you're paying for this
I
right now.
thought there was a whole legal process that they.
Oh, there is a legal process, but it's part of local law, the $10,000 local law surcharge we're looking at there, so. That's
So you
why I
don't think
put
we need a
$10,000 of local laws in there.
So we don't need a lawyer at the end of this,
We've got a lawyer.
well, like a zoning lawyer, you know, someone who,
They are very adept at planning and zoning matters.
but it'll
Step-
cost extra. I mean, won't it cost extra to do that? I mean, it's not part of the contract, right?
It's extra in terms of it's in the contract as you would pay as a per hour basis
Right,
for.
billable hours.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why, again, I put $10,000 in for local law stuff for next budget year,
Do you
because.
think that's enough? Or no?
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna, as long as we're responsible about how we're handling local laws generally,
Mhm.
like when we did the parks and did the kind of crowdsourcing of. Thoughts before we send it to Carla, say, here, go fix this now type of thing. I think that's where we have an advantage ultimately in keeping it down a little bit. We are our own worst enemy at times about how we've handled some of this stuff.
Matching grant funds, do we need to put that in the?
It's
for
in the
TAP
tree,
CMAC?
brush and weeds has that match. It's always been.
100,000 or so?
No, you're talking TAP CMAC. I'm talking trees first.
The
because
tree,
that-
the tree grant's like
I-
12.5.
Look, Ben, I took the script, okay? I'm telling you what was in the script. 12.5 is in there. We are rolling over 10,000. So it's there. Caitlin asked for basically 31 total. That's how we're accomplishing it because we barely used any this year.
Mhm.
And she even asked me recently, hey, what about doing it like right away? I'm like, do it at your leisure because I gave you the full 31 and you can do it. You can do some now, if you still have some money you can use for now, but do it in an orderly fashion because I don't want DPW feeling this sudden urge or need to cut down a bunch of
But within that
trees.
31 is the 12.5 for match?
Yes,
And there's
yes,
still enough for the
Yes.
trees.
yes,
beyond
because
that.
if you get the match, you get another 12.5, right?
You get more than that, I think.
Well, I think it's 50-50.
Is it 50/50?
I think so.
No, it wasn't 50. No, it's like
No, it's only
75,000.
25 and half of which, so that was the news to me. Wait, the
All
money's
right.
there.
What about the TAP CMAC if we happen to get it?
Are we paying for the TAF CMAC in fiscal year 25? We get it, the first stuff.
I think
So
it's 3
we'd have to
years.
go through a process to hire the consultant, because it'd be an RFP. We'd have to get a committee together. I mean, it will take a year probably after we get word for everything to get to the point where we're starting to pay out on consultancies.
Well, it's a match, first, I mean.
Right, but
don't you
it's
think
all
the first-
consultancy is the first stuff because they're doing the design plans and stuff like that.
When's the match or the grant gonna be announced?
We are probably later than when Ballston's gonna hear because they were well before we were in terms of when they put theirs in.
You have any sense?
Oh, once it's not based on when you turn it in.
But do you know when, like roughly?
Could be any day.
So for the TAP CMAC, we're gonna form a committee,
Yeah,
even though the scope of work is pretty much fleshed out.
I think you'd have to, after the committee for. Say, it's all these state-based grants.
Is that in the grant?
All these state-based grants do this, so I don't see why they'd be different.
I'm not sure if there's a committee in that one, but anyway, I
The state
think,
loves their committees, come on.
I think there's a potential, we might need that 100,000 or whatever, if we get the grant, obviously, let's see if we get it. But, this year, or, next year,
8 inches of snow,
Do-
you're telling me now?
No.
What, 8 inches of thickness?
Yes.
Got it. The concrete's 8 inches, sorry.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
what about stormwater? Do we need any money?
No,
for
the
stormwater?
Saratoga County Sewer District number 1 recently contacted us. Also in there, so you can read about it. Recently hit us up about they noticed our I&I issues and they are working with us They're also gonna identify grants that they will help sign it off on to help us get them ultimately. So we're in progress of starting that work, to see what we can do to control the INI that they're noticing from us in large quantity. So,
That's good.
yeah, we do have some engineering money in the budget for stormwater as well. It's in there. If you'll look at the notes on that when it's there.
Yeah, we may need to do some camera work in certain occasions.
Yeah, but you know, they're willing to stay out the cameras, so
Yeah.
they'll assist us on that stuff. That's what they basically want to do. They want to take a better look at this.
All right. So just, again, just a few small things. Are we okay giving historical society $1,000?
You know what?
Giving the historical
The
society
HDC,
$1,000?
the HDC.
Yeah, that's fine. I am curious why it was so late to us though.
Are you talking about the historic district or?
Yeah, the district.
Yeah,
Okay. Can I speak?
if you don't mind, Frank.
If you guys want to, again, I'm here,
just-
I'm just here to
I am
smile and look
curious,
pretty at
'cause
this point.
Yeah, we only meet once a month. And I know that we had talked about, things that we would want to do, and there was just some confusion, I think, from John. And, we actually didn't come to the decision until our meeting in March.
Okay. All right.
So then the point was, we decided that what we wanted to do was to get signs to delineate the historic district. But then I had to get quotes and understand how much it costs, talk to Jeff Garies about the procedures for getting signs put in place. And so that took a little bit of time. And even more time for the revised one because we felt the quick quotes I could get were for generic signs that would be so. But the parking sign that we have out here is the one that apparently T-shirt Graphics did, according to Jeff. And I finally got a quote from them in terms of the better looking sign that's more consistent with the signage in the village. That has the profile on it and it has the actual spring on it. So this is the reason for the increase, because that's a more expensive sign than just a generic sign. So this is the type of sign for the historic district, and that way it would be consistent with other signs in the village. So I apologize.
That's okay. What's the size of that?
It is. I can tell you.
Oh, it's hot in here now.
I think he turned up the heat.
I did.
Oh.
Would you like me to turn back now?
We gotta remember to turn it on.
68 is where it starts. I think it's on a timer and so.
All right, well, this isn't that important.
Okay, so, yeah.
If we like the idea, we can move on.
Yeah, so just quickly, the $1,000 was for the 5 signs, okay? Jeff Garies quoted me that it would cost about $100 to put in a sign. He was unclear whether that was something we would have to budget or whether it would just be something that DPW does, okay? So it comes out of their budget for whatever they do, replacing signs and that sort of thing. So that's the other $500. Which doesn't have to, depending on how you want to handle it, doesn't have to come out of
Yeah.
the historic district.
Okay, I think it's a good use of funds in general.
Oh, well, I'm not against signs, to be clear.
Okay.
To be clear, but my question is, if we are doing the zoning stuff, I mean, could we perhaps for this year replace the 2 broken ones, like the real bad ones, and then when we have a better, clearer idea of where the
Well-
final delineations are,
Yeah,
then make that request?
okay, so there's been zero discussion about changing the boundaries of the historic district.
There may be though.
Well, so the discussion that we actually have had is the fact that the village code allows for different historic districts, okay? There's like, you can have a residential historic district, a semi-commercial district and other districts, which is a possibility that's probably more likely than just expanding the current residential district, okay? So, if there were anything happening, and I kind of doubt it's gonna happen in that time frame, but there has been very little discussion about additional historic districts or expanding them.
Or,
Even if we did, we could just move the sign.
right, it sounds like there's no talk of, restricting or reducing the historic district, but there's the potential for expanding it based
Yeah.
on the code.
The real issue is that the only signs are on High Street coming in from High Street West to High Street East. The historic district extends down Malta Avenue or Milton Avenue and Church Street, and there's no signs there. It also extends down Pleasant Street, and there's no sign there. So that's why we're asking for 5 signs to be each one of the entries into the historic district. The old signs were there when the historic district was just like High Street, you know.
Yeah.
So,
The only
that's what
thing I
I wanted to-
saw from your picture, again, depending on size, one thing we wanna make sure is that it's an appropriate size.
Yeah.
And doesn't create sign clutter.
Yeah, it's exactly the size of the arching sign right out here.
Okay,
Um,
yeah,
there are cheaper signs. I can get one that's off the shelf that's this big, that
Oh,
says,
no,
welcome to, and
I like your idea because it's consistent with what we
Yes.
already have.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure that it's, an appropriate, a sign this big is probably too big.
Yeah.
A sign more like
Those
that is
residential
probably
areas.
more appropriate, so.
Okay, So we're good to go for that.
No, I'm not sure that it needs to be 1,000. I think,
It's 28
The
by 30.
argument about whether it changes is irrelevant, because we can move this.
It's 28 by 30.
it's not a lot of labor.
Well, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
get hung up on this right now. We can figure this one out amongst ourselves, but anyway.
Can we have,
right.
and the only other thing I would say is it possible to have a line item for it, for us? Rather than have it be just this general
No.
discussion?
No,
And the reason is what?
our budget is controlled based by our accountants as to the lines we use. And history has only a limited number of account numbers, so the lines are the lines for it. We are doing a better job this year of delineating and keeping track so that you don't run into the same jackpot you did this last year.
Yeah, I want to avoid that.
So
What
that's
lines do we got? We have something for
history,
history.
historian plus, I think it's under right now.
All right,
I think they
Yeah.
go down here.
all right.
Thank
Another
you.
issue I'd like to discuss is I think if employees are getting 2%, that the planning board, the zoning board, and this board of trustees should get 2% across the board for inflation, because inflation's been a lot more than 2%. And we all work very hard, and there's no reason to get paid less year over year.
Well, actually, the non-collective bargaining, it looked like we're getting 2.5. It's just the contractual that are getting 2.
So well, let's,
Yeah.
you're throwing a bunch of things here, so let me,
Yeah.
for clarity. Planning and zoning are actually going up more than 2% because we believe that their work level and workload is about to go up because of the rezoning stuff going on.
So are you paying them to participate in the zoning?
No,
process?
but they're going to have more stuff coming at them, most likely starting next year, so their numbers are way under what do you get paid in Ballston, out of curiosity?
$50 a meeting and the chair gets 100. So what is this budget going to pay?
This budget pays,
Because they were asking for hundreds of dollars a meeting.
well, no, I don't think they're getting hundreds here in the left.
So it's going to $9,000 or 20%.
75 for alternates that attend, 1,000 overall, assuming 12 meetings a year is 80 something dollars per right. And the chair is 2,500 overall. The difference between our municipality and Ballston, though, I would say about chairs is that the chairs do more work to prep for meeting stuff. They actually don't just get handed the packets the same way. Kathy does a good job, don't get me wrong, but they're actually facing more direct line of fire compared to John Van Voorst and where your zoning is in Ballston now.
So they're only going to get paid if they have a meeting. right?
No, I think that is salaried, right?
Yeah.
So they're getting paid whether there's a meeting or not. This year, even though zoning isn't changing till next year, probably. It seems, I don't understand the rationale. So 200, they're gonna get over $200
Well,
a
right
month?
now, the zoning and planning members are getting 9, 12, 15, so we're increasing them up to 1,000 total, even
What are the chairs gonna get per meeting? You said $2,500
for the year. Yeah,
each. So they're getting over $200 a meeting or $200 a month, whether they meet or not. Doesn't that seem,
Zoning got paid.
oh, no, they do.
They do now?
Oh, yeah, it's been in their budget, I've seen it.
so how do we justify
I
them
was gonna
getting
text
paid when there's no meetings?
That's just tradition,
$200.
I take the budget I was handed from back when, and what the reality was that there was salary on the normal members, excuse me. And zoning board alternates, when they have to appear, get a stipend.
Wasn't there stipend increase recently?
So 80,
You're thinking of the stipend for the clerk, so she was using hours for her part-time scenario downstairs, and so we built into it a stipend for work for planning and zoning, so it wasn't eating into her work downstairs.
so in Ballston, how does Milton work? We only get paid if we show up at a meeting. You get paid monthly?
You better go on bargaining there, bud.
I'm very surprised that Ballston is that different than the others. So
Not necessarily.
200,
And we pay our alternates too, like, even if they might not be on the dais, they get paid.
Yeah, I
Because we
think
want to
only
encourage them to
pay-
be at meetings.
We only
So-
pay them actively, I think, in our case.
Yeah.
so we're paying everybody $85 a month.
Yeah.
Whether there's a meeting or not. Right? Okay, to me, that sounds like very generous, like. I mean, again, it's so far, the town of Ballston has so much more development happening than this village. I mean, it's like triple. And the idea that we're gonna pay our people triple or more per year for doing a third of the work compared to Ballston, I'm gonna find out. What
I
is,
think yours is low though, maybe.
what does Milton pay?
Oh, I'll email you. I don't know, just.
All right, I'm gonna call. I just think we're out of
I
whack.
thought they were on the board because of a sense of patriotic duty.
That's why I don't know what it is. I just.
Because that check is really making a
Okay,
difference.
Right, so let's compare that. To not getting any increase for for us. When we work very hard at this job. What is the rationale for that?
What's up?
I'm not doing this for the money. You're doing this for the money.
I'm not doing it for the money, no, but I do
Yeah,
object.
like, and then I assume the board isn't either.
Right, yeah, none of these people are doing it for the money, so why are they getting paid so, right?
I don't think we should get an increase. I just don't.
Why?
Things are tough. Liz, you're not on the board anymore. Don't
Why?
worry about it. I think things are tough. They shouldn't be taking,
Everybody should back up, please.
things are more difficult for families and I just don't feel like it's right to give ourselves a pay increase.
So
Whether it's symbolic or small or whatever.
I think
just
it's,
don't
all
think
right, so here's my opinion, and again, I'm not doing this for the money.
I'm
But
glad.
I think it's disrespectful to this democratic institution of the village to not,
Why do you gotta be so partisan?
well, it feels partisan. It feels like what I'm anticipating is if Sean and I
Sean got
leave,
my joke.
if Sean and I leave in 2 years and you have a full board of Republicans, that's when you'll jump up the pay raise.
Oh,
That's
okay.
that's the anticipation, but even, that's just a guess. But anyway, all right. I don't understand why.
Don't political suicide like making that move. Let me tell you something.
I understand why we would not keep up with everybody else. Why are we different than everybody else? Getting the 2%.
The legislature gave
When we are so
themselves
under-
a pay increase that was like so poorly received from the community. And like, honestly, when I've dealt with local officials and worked with them on everything from campaigns or not. And the conversation would come up to this, I go, it's just a bad idea. Don't do it. You know,
So how about
you
don't-
get some,
what if
you
we
get
go down
some-
and
I'm sorry, I didn't finish.
what? Go ahead. Sorry.
I generally don't think it's a good idea. It sends a bad message to the community. And I just have no interest in it. I've never had an interest in that. And I think it's a bad
You
idea.
think you're overpaid?
Listen, I'm not worried about it one way or the other. It is not something I'm thinking about. I'm here to do this work. And so honestly, I think, yeah, I would think most regular people think any politician's overpaid, honestly. So I don't think it's necessary. And I honestly don't think it's worth the time that we're discussing on it, but.
So for the sake of argument, so when it's poorly received, probably in state government, for one thing. We're talking salaries 60, 70, 80, 90, 100,000. So yeah, if you're doing a 2% or 3% raise, that's actual money. And on top of the fact that they get expense accounts, they get, a lot of things,
Well, it's not comparable.
gratis. So
They had a
yeah, I
huge
can
increase.
understand.
I've
why
also
people-
dealt with the local level
So-
and it also usually isn't
At-
perceived that
At
way.
the,
So.
Yeah.
well, I think everyone can understand and even agree to, if everyone's getting a 2% raise, it's not even about us as individuals, it's about the institution of the village board, which is a valuable institution, as valuable as the planning board or zoning board, or even more so. And the village should invest in that, and 2% is what everyone else is getting. It's not more. So it just shows a respect for the institution. And it just seems like it should just be pro forma. And frankly, this is out of the norm. Like normally, you can confirm if this is true, it just happens along with everything else.
100%, because I've not always been a contractual worker. I've been a non-contractual worker at municipalities, and
Mhm.
you never get more than what the contractuals get, ever.
But you do get what the contractual.
You get less. You get less, but you never get more.
I appreciate both of your passions on this issue. I just don't think it's necessary.
I just think we
don't.
should be consistent.
Mary,
Mary, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just,
What?
Yeah.
Mary, you did it for the paycheck, didn't you?
None of us are doing it. So,
The pay.
yeah, me neither. When I got the job, I was like, I'm not sure how much I'm
You're
getting.
like.
You did, yeah.
I think we should.
So-
the historic district. We get nothing.
So just to put this in perspective, if we all got 2%, it would be about $1,000. So that's not
Collectively.
collectively for the whole thing. I
And I'm
just,
sure
it sends actually,
the folks at the state level, it was $1,000
Right.
collectively, nobody would make a fee.
I think it just sends a bad message to the community about valuing this institution and the role that it plays and how hard we work.
Okay, again, if
to
we
me,
can start
again-
behaving, maybe, but we don't behave, so I said this
No,
last year.
now you're getting personal because it's not
All
about
of
us.
us.
It's not even about who's here and what.
We don't respect the institution as is, so why should we get
I
a?
do.
Oh, Ben, oh, friend, no, Mary accepted, because Mary never raises her voice.
Mary always thinks.
I know, we always have to say it, Mary accepted. Guys,
This-
like, we have not done a good job at that ourselves. Why in the heck are we gonna
You know
give
what?
ourselves a
Yeah,
raise?
so we disagree. Sometimes I think you do a horrible job. Sometimes I think Frank does a horrible job. And sometimes you think I do a horrible job, Sean. And that's irrelevant. This is not about the people in the job. It's about the position itself.
That's the nicest thing you ever
But
said
so
about
if
me.
you're in a position and
It's
you're
about-
doing a bad job, why do you deserve a raise?
I don't think. I'm
If
doing
you're
a
in
bad
private
job.
sector.
What I'm saying, it's your
private-
opinion. It's your
So if
opinion.
your boss
If you're doing
said,
a
Ben, let's
bad
have a
job.
conversation, or me for that matter, and we're not doing our job or doing a good job, why should we expect even a COLA?
Typically, everyone in an organization, unless they're fired, gets the same raise as everyone else, even if they're not doing a good job as someone else in the organization. It's not as if, maybe in business world where you get a commission and the more you sell, the more you make, but the state government and many, many nonprofits, they're not looking necessarily at are you doing better or worse than someone else? If you're part of the organization, you get the increase. And that's the model that we've always had. So again, to me, we can get into how good a job each of us are doing. That's irrelevant. Like, that's a losing conversation, right? We're all gonna just piss on each other. So it's about the position itself and valuing the institution. Just like we valued planning board, zoning board, and our staff, right? Why are they getting raises? You know, everyone should get a raise.
Really hard. for us.
Yeah, we all work hard. So
No, I don't
everyone
think
should
they-
get a raise.
They
We
work a
work
lot
here,
harder than us.
and
Our staff work very hard. So listen,
The
I
hours-
appreciate that we're
you
never
know
gonna
what?
be on
The
the same
dollars,
side
the
of
dollars
this issue.
per hour that we work is very, very low, very low. We get paid pennies on the hour
Mm,
for our work here. And,
I'm sorry.
so. Yeah, I
Well,
don't
No, I'm
appreciate
saying
the smile
We're gonna,
smugness.
because
Because you're
it
not
sounds a
taking-
little ridiculous after a while.
All right,
It
I'll call
does.
you ridiculous and see how you respond.
That's
Bernadette.
fine. We will never be on the same side of this issue. I respect that. I really do not think that we need to give ourselves a raise.
So, again, I'm just gonna say, out of consistency and fairness, either you give everybody the same raise or you give nobody a raise. Now contractually, we have to give 2% raise. So you could give that across the board. Or because you're non-contractual, you give nobody a raise. But it should be consistent.
Well.
I'm not done yet. Let me finish.
Well, I gotta correct something because this will be used against us if I don't correct
Right.
this, okay? There is no truth to contractual versus non-contractual and being matching on benefits and wages. I had this conversation with our labor attorney. There is no relationship there. It may be done as tradition, but it's not a legality or something like
I
that.
never said
I
it.
just want to make sure it's clear.
It's just
okay?
been done since the dawn of time.
Now keep going. That's fine. I had to go there because I
right.
hear a lane in my head right now.
Yeah. So, again, $1,000. So it's not about the money. All this really is
Exactly.
political talking points for the next election cycle, and that's all it is. That's an irrefutable fact.
I'm not running next election cycle.
What? I mean, why didn't it go in?
I am a believer that basically everything you said, that's why I'm shut up over here. It's like, you're saying exactly my thoughts, so I'm not saying a
Which is
word.
what?
All the above.
Well, I'd like to hear your opinion, because
We don't deserve it.
You don't deserve it.
We
You
don't
As a
deserve it.
collective board, we do
Mhm.
not deserve it.
It's a we. Notice I didn't take one either.
That's a political statement, is what that is. It's politics. That's what that is.
It's not Republican, Democrat, or anything else. It's we don't deserve it.
Mhm.
Okay, that's my feeling on it. But yeah, like I said, I stick
Yeah,
out there on this.
just-
You've asked me.
Just the
full-
public should know how much, that we put so many hours into this job. We make the job harder for each other. That's admittedly true, right? Because we don't work
That
well
we can
together.
all agree on,
And
actually.
so it's almost like we deserve like war pay. And, but we put in so many hours, compared to what we do get, which is 4,000 something, that, to say we don't deserve it, I think is absurd.
Well, yeah, ultimately, if you really want to look at it, you would have to multiply what we make now by 10 to actually compensate us for the hours versus the value of those hours based on our skill sets. So, so obviously we're giving the village a tremendous bargain, one way or the other. But, I don't really care. Ultimately, I don't care. But I do care about consistency in policy. And I just don't think this is consistent. I don't
And
think
not-
somebody arbitrarily should give somebody a poor performance appraisal. You know, just because.
And not make the
Like, that's
budget
what they think,
political, which is
but-
what this does. It's a
But-
political thing.
Okay, well, nonetheless,
Ultimately, I don't care.
feelings have been made known here.
All right.
Anything else that should be considered as we head now? We will have a public hearing on Monday on tentative budget, so that'll be public's opportunity for their 5 minutes each at that point. So I think anybody that watches this has grasp on things that either would be changed, added on to it because of some change factors, et cetera. So, I mean,
Mhm.
last thoughts, anybody?
The one other thing, that I'd like to mention or bring up is if we're putting a lot of money towards events, I think the task force should become an actual committee. They're using, $46,000 or $48,000.
Okay, well, we gotta stop there too, because let's go to,
And then I'd like to speak.
no, okay, hold on.
Yeah, it's kind of
Gary
unprecedented
spoke
that
after we
a
had the letter.
ad hoc committee have such a
Okay,
large.
go to
budget.
page 6 midway, because this spouse has got to go away too now. Actually, top, there's 2 paragraphs that had to go on this one for some reason. Liz writes, in culture and recreation, the funding for the arts is predicted to decrease from fiscal year 2024 by 26%, while celebrations were raised 46% to 46,140. Celebrations had already been raised 80% in 2024. No other items in the budget have increased as large as this item. Response. As suggested in the mayor's memo, the perception of a celebrations increase is incorrect, as the former birdhouse program money is now being placed in celebrations, where a replacement program is being budgeted in caps using solely the rolled over birdhouse program money. Celebrations in fiscal year 24, including the birdhouse program, were funded $46,006. In fiscal year 25, they're funded $46,140. That's a $134 increase, of which $9,640 is rolled over in not fresh funding. Jumping down, furthermore, the following events are in the celebrations account and are not under the management of the events task force. After prom, 1,000, banners, 2,500, holiday parade,
So the
1,500.
banners are gonna be done by Committee on Art?
We don't know, but it's not directly under the events task force. We
Oh.
budget them because
So-
we know we have generally a need or desire to have banners on poles at certain times of the year. So we put in 2,500 now as placeholder for banners.
Right, why wouldn't it go to Committee on Arts?
They have a set also.
What?
They have a set also. There's 2 sets.
Yeah.
Their budget right now.
Now for the birdhouse.
Well, hold on, let me just finish
Okay,
this.
sure.
Swimming with the Stars, 5,500. That's not under theirs. Flags, 2,000, not under. Holiday decor, 2,000, and Memorial Day, 1,000. That means 15,500 of fresh funding is not related to the events task force, a nonpartisan group of volunteers that actually execute these events each year. And instead of insulting these good people, Liz, maybe say nothing and stop looking like a fool spouting off incorrect information here. You're either lying or ignorant beyond belief, because these numbers aren't correct that are being touted about what
Well,
they're
in the budget,
responsible for.
in the budget, you can see the numbers going up. Up. And obviously we can argue what the correct number should be, but it's I brought up the topic because there's tens of $1,000s and
You're only giving them $22,000 fresh money when you take the roll.
fresh money. Well, I considered a rollover something of fresh money when it wasn't used last year in the treehouse or the birdhouse.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
why wouldn't we make them a committee? So they're a little more accountable to the people.
Okay, again, Gary spoke, so Gina gets a chance.
You're implying that we're not accountable then? That's your money that your treasurer pays out. We don't handle the money. And as far as the donation portion, it is not our responsibility to fund village events. Will we help? Will we try? Yes. Will I guarantee it? Absolutely not. Inflation. Why do we ask for more money? Inflation, Ben. Everything's gone up. The cost to put this on is going up.
Thank you.
You don't involve yourself in what we do, yet you sit there and act like you know what we do. And quite frankly, we got our asses kicked today on Facebook because the Birdhouse Festival's not happening. People don't know that we're working
All right,
our tails off.
We're beyond the
speaking.
budget now.
I'm speaking. No, we're not. We're talking the Birdhouse Festival. People are angry. They want that back. We can't give them the Birdhouse Festival, but we can give them something. And you just sit there and you want to talk about political? Please, get a mayor.
Let's stop now at that point. You have your explanation and also correction on the numbers that are being spouted off.
I guess I would go back to why we gave essentially what's an arts exhibit that was done by the non-for-profit with the name art in it, not to the arts committee and to the task events force,
Because
since it's an
because
artist.
they honestly don't want it. They didn't ask for that money. Yeah, they asked for their own share money. They got it.
Where they offered it?
They don't want this project.
We
All right.
stepped up and volunteered, Sean, you're welcome.
So just the example that we've already touched.
They're
on.
willing to assist, Sean. They're not gonna organize, et cetera, if you. you're
Fine,
misunderstanding
if
what I'm
you, if they said, no, we don't want the money because we don't want to deal with this project, then that's fine. If, you know,
saying. They've got plenty they're doing,
Yeah,
yeah,
they
their
don't
own,
want
yeah.
So the example that already has come up is this idea that this board will be surprised by how $9,000 is spent. There's gonna be, so. And we've already articulated that we'd rather not be surprised. We'd actually rather know the idea and approve it before it happens. But that often doesn't happen with this task force arrangement. Often we are the last to know what's going to happen. And so when a committees operate with a little more structure where they propose things, we actually have liaisons and we all hear about what's
open
happening.
meetings.
And so there's a vetting process of what happens and how it happens that has not occurred with the task force. And so that's a source of concern for me.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is, it's unprecedented for basically an ad hoc committee to have such a substantial budget. Yeah, you know, maybe a couple $100 here or there, but thousands and thousands of dollars. That should fall under an official committee in the parameters and
Well, technically.
procedures of an official
Technically,
committee.
you're providing this money to the executive. Okay, to execute, right? In a situation like this, the execution can't be done by staff fully. You know, we can involve DPW to assist, but this is why we need volunteers to assist.
Sure, but it
They,
could be,
they
I'm
branded
happy to
themselves.
give the money to an official committee.
Yeah, it
so
could
you
be a
don't have to
regular
worry
committee.
about it, Frank.
anyway, so that'll
That'll be the end of your committee policy, I'll tell you right now.
well, it's been a viable mechanism for.
I don't
creating
understand.
multiple
You'd
committees.
vote down a committee policy because
Because
it may
I
affect
know
certain
exactly where you're going.
individuals on a
Because
task
I know
force.
where you're going with it.
Ray has, whether he lets us know or not, he's been kind of giving mini reports as part of his.
Yeah.
His, what do you call it? Public comment. It sounds like they are going to be able to present something to us. When by the second meeting of
I
next
think
month.
at worst, yeah.
So, I mean,
With the
it sounds
idea,
like they have, they're gonna be able to present something to us and.
that's not a fait accompli, right? That's something that we can consider and have input into. About how this 9,000 is spent and how the public space is used versus this is what's happening.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I wouldn't be too difficult on it because the community is really clamoring.
I'm not being difficult,
I'm
but
not saying you are, I'm just saying, be aware that the community, if you've seen, you probably have seen on Facebook, they're very upset that there's not gonna be some, you know, to their knowledge yet, some replacement for birdhouse, and we know we can't get birdhouse. So something is gonna be presented to us, you know, and.
that's great. And I'm not against something happening, but there should be a correct process for approving and vetting and spending that money. It shouldn't be some extracurricular thing.
I
that
mean,
we don't know what's happening.
Because I don't even know what the procedures are with that money, you know? Are we soliciting artists in the local community that may be able to create a display? Or, you know, because that's something we should be doing.
How much DPW
Yeah.
time is this gonna take? That was a question we always asked.
Mhm.
That would apply to this too. So, yeah, it's not as if I'm personally against whatever. I have no idea what you guys are talking about, of course, because I haven't been told, but I'm not necessarily against something happening, but we should be in the loop.
I mean,
And
because
I
this,
think it will
the
be.
birdhouse all originated by
Before.
a local artist offering their time. And, you know, it evolved. I don't see why we can't recreate that wheel.
The task force worked alongside him for the Birdhouse Festival. And raised donations.
That's actually accurate.
Well, yeah, and I mean, as this evolved, my hopes and beliefs were that the non-for-profit ASCC would eventually take over all these celebration and events so that we would just be donating much like the SPPA to a third party. And they would control, obviously we'd have review of the content, but it would be a third party. And I mean, yeah, I don't know if that's something BSPPA wants to take on with additional funding,
They don't.
No,
so.
that's.
Because I think it either should be an official committee or a non-for-profit.
Mhm.
With set procedures and guidelines. And it would be great, to have public input at regular meetings, so on and so forth. So,
Yeah, unfortunately, red taping a process like that is gonna scare people away from being volunteers. That becomes a concern, Sean. I'm not being, trying to be a jerk when I say that, but that's a reality.
well, being a volunteer at the event is different from being a member on a committee.
I mean, the Arts and Committee and the Committee on the Arts, they're learning how to do things and
Yeah.
getting things done, and the Park and Tree Board is moving ahead, so it is possible. You got the zoning committee, you got the revenue committee, so things can happen.
But arts is just getting on its feet.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Over,
I
but
don't think to say that committees are stronger necessarily in these sort of situations. It's not necessarily the case. Yeah.
I absolutely agree if the Arts Committee doesn't, they've written correspondence, documentation. That they're not interested in doing this, then.
They
I
literally
guess
have their own projects. They have quite a few on the.
They've
so-
stated in a written statement that they're not interested. in
We
this
have a
one.
wood showing. We
Anyway,
have the donated wood.
So,
Okay.
I don't believe we need a meeting tomorrow, is, we're planning here, is that we hit all the, points that you needed to raise?
Yeah, I mean, is there a need for any department heads?
I haven't.
that's all
Or
right.
anything?
You sure you don't want the library to come and say, hey, there might be more money for you?
Once, good thought.
So.
All right, well, thanks for this conversation. I appreciate it.
We're still an official meeting. Motion to cancel Thursday's meeting, workshop, Thursday, April 4th, workshop, special meeting.
Make the motion.
Trustee
Second.
Deinsa, trustee Raymond, discussion, all in favor,
Aye.
opposed, motion carries. Can I get a motion to adjourn at 9:13 PM?
I'll make that motion.
That was great. I'll give it to Ben, trustee Basket, trustee Ray, would you like a second?
Yes.
Discussion, all in favor,
I
opposed, motion carries.
I
Everybody, public
literally
hearing on
don't
Monday night.
know who was faster.
That was good.
That was the fastest I've ever heard you guys talk. For